welcome. With the exception of the first and last series in this compilation, all of these quick reviews are about a new series with a recently completed arc. So, let's begin. Copra is a 31-issue series that was suggested to me a while back, and I regret not mentioning it until this point. It's an amazing, oddball superhero title that deserves to be a lot more popular than it is. At first glance, Copra looks like a fanfiction/love letter to the Ostrander era of the Suicide Squad, which it certainly is. However, it has its own unique voice, and it does become its own thing rather quickly. The writer-artist, Michael Fife, assembles a dream team of thinly disguised characters from both Marvel and DC. For example, there's Captain Boomerang, Shade the Changing Man, Doctor Strange and Clea, all working together, and these are all very good versions of these characters. The artwork is mostly abstract, and requires a little more attention than usual for an action-oriented comic book. The writing is solid, so that provides a good foundation to allow for more abstract character designs. Basically, if you like the classic Suicide Squad comic, then chances are good that you'll like this reinterpretation. Even if you're unfamiliar with that team, this is still a solid comic book. Yeah, it looks weird, and yeah, the stories are weird, but it's not so weird that it's impenetrable or enigmatic. Unfortunately, it's been over a year since the last issue, so it's likely that this is now a defunct series. Regardless, it's still worth picking up. Gideon Falls by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino shows a lot of promise. To me, it has the atmosphere of a David Lynch movie. It feels creepy and unreal, and it seems to take place a small step outside the reality we're all familiar with. The story is two stories that run parallel to one another. The first story involves a priest being assigned to the small community of Gideon Falls. The other concerns a psychologically questionable man who collects specific forms of garbage in an unnamed, larger city. These two stories are connected by the presence of a shifting, evil structure known as the Black Barn. It all feels very creepy and unreal, which is greatly enhanced by Sorrentino's artwork. Based on the First Ark, it's a really good example of modern supernatural horror. I don't think Lemire has written anything quite like this before, although he is no stranger to weird stories taking place in a small community. What sets this apart is that it is far more atmospheric and dark than anything he's previously done. Again, Sorrentino's artwork greatly contributes to these elements. Hopefully it takes an unpredictable creative turn in the future. While it projects a good atmospheric vibe, the story is kind of straightforward. It is well written, but it's not exactly challenging. There's nothing wrong with that, it's a solid approach. But I think Lemire is sitting on a concept that could be a bit more than a solid, creepy story. Hopefully he stretches his capabilities and takes a few creative chances within this series. Even if he doesn't, this could prove to be quite an interesting read. This reboot of the classic Bruce Banner Hulk has been getting a lot of good reviews. And sure, it's a fresh take on the Hulk concept, but there's been no shortage of those in the past 30 years or so. This time around, the Hulk is some supernatural beast that comes alive during the night. As a consequence, Bruce Banner, who was killed off in Civil War II, is unable to die. Okay, sure, why not? In a lot of ways, the Hulk is no different than the Spirit of Vengeance, Ghost Rider. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big reveal at some point where it turns out the Hulk is some incarnation of Zarathos, the demon that originally possessed Johnny Blaze. I wouldn't lay bets on that, but it wouldn't surprise me if it occurred. Overall, I think the first arc is quite uninteresting. The supernatural direction and the characterization of the Hulk just doesn't work. Also, I get the sense that it's trying hard to establish something new, while not straying too far from the established Hulk character. Basically, it's trying to tempt old and new readers in with a slightly inventive direction that feels very middle of the road. Furthermore, it's hard to get too invested in this direction, since it's only a matter of time before it's reset into something more traditional. I'm not suggesting it's terrible, it's just, I don't know, not all that interesting. In a similar vein, another mainstream title that seems quite popular is the Terrifcs. This is a team that was assembled due to the events in Dark Knight's Metal. The first arc establishes the setup of the team, which includes Mr. Terrific, Plastic Man, a new Phantom Girl, Metamorpho, and Metamorpho's supporting cast. It's probably accidental, but it has a bit of a cosmic Fantastic Four vibe. The series is brisk and breezy and requires very little attention. It's, fast food superheroics. You get what you expect, and it lives up to those expectations. Like with the Hulk, it's not terrible, but at the same time, for my tastes, it's not all that interesting. If mainstream superhero teams are your thing, then there's probably a fair amount in this series to enjoy. A Walk Through Hell is a new ongoing series from Garth Ennis and an artist whose name I know my Canadian tongue can't pronounce. Sorry, man. Anyway, this is a bit of a departure for Ennis, who generally tells very straightforward stories. It seems a little like Ennis is slightly experimenting with his narrative, and, so far, it's working. It's a little disorienting at first, but it's easy to adapt to once you realize the story is hopping around in time without indicating what's past and what's present. The story concerns two FBI agents who are, basically, tying up all the loose ends of a serial killer case they've previously solved. This leads them to a warehouse where, well, things get bizarre and horrific. Subtle is not a word I use to describe Ennis's stories or characters, but with this first arc, it does have a subtlety not ordinarily present in his work. More to the point, the brutality of the story is suggested far more often than shown, and when it is seen, it is far more effective and horrific. I suppose what I'm trying to say is this reads like a series from a writer that has matured, or at the very least, he's put aside his dependence on cartoonish violence and characters who spew edgy dialogue. The premise is unreal, but the characters within that unreality all feel grounded and genuine. So far, an interesting series with a lot of potential. American Monster by Brian Azzarello and Juan Doe is a reasonably dense crime drama. By that I mean in the first arc, there is a lot being established. In fact, I can't say for certain exactly what direction the series is heading. It looks to be about an ex-military man who is burned beyond recognition while in service, seeking revenge on those responsible for his appearance. But there is far more going on than this. To me, it seems very reminiscent of Southern Bastards, but without the preoccupation around football. There's a fairly extensive cast, more than a few subplots, and it's only a matter of time before all these elements collide into some violent confrontation. American Monster doesn't appear to have a high-concept premise, and there's no indication it will turn into a sprawling crime epic, like 100 Bullets. Just the opposite, actually. This appears to be a story on a much smaller scale with a lot of moving parts. So the circumstances are complex, but it's all contained in one location. Basically, if you like Azzarello writing crime, you're probably going to like this series. The original Darth Vader series, which concluded with issue 25 and then was rebooted, was entirely written by Kieran Gillen, the writer of The Wicked and the Divine, and it is a thoroughly enjoyable read. The entire series is about Vader's redemption following the destruction of the Death Star. The loss of this powerful weapon, which Vader was protecting, is a failure the Emperor cannot tolerate from his apprentice. What follows is a series of events where Vader is under high scrutiny and his position as the Emperor's ultimate living weapon is challenged. In the end, it justifies Vader's reputation as the most dangerous person in the Star Wars universe. Certainly he's a bit overpowered, but he's rarely presented with a situation that seems beneath his capabilities. The only criticism I have, which applies to all Star Wars-related titles, especially ones that take place between movies, is that any possible tension is nullified by the status quo. For example, regardless of what happens between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader is still the Emperor's champion. That is set in stone. While it's interesting to see Vader fight to maintain that status, the ending is a foregone conclusion, so it's hard to get invested in a story when you know the end. That being said, this Darth Vader series successfully thrives on its characterization of Vader, which is perfect. Probably better than any movie, to be honest. He is terse, direct, intelligent, and thorough, and he's arrogant enough to face impossible odds with the confidence that he will be the one left standing at the end. For all intents and purposes, this approach makes him a classic movie monster. So this is a very well done character study that contains reasonably complex plots to highlight Vader's ability to adapt and survive. If you want to see this character done very well, I think this is the series you won't regret reading. Well, there you have it, a varied combination of quick reviews about newer, ongoing series. I thought it best to only review titles with a full arc because, well, a single issue isn't enough to decide whether a series has potential or not. I would like to briefly reiterate that both Copra and the Solo Vader series are worth a read. They are vastly different in subject matter, but both have very solid storytelling. That's it for today. Like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I will talk at you later. Until next time.